Yo, what up, what up? It's man, Brandon Carter. Today we're going to interview one of my favorite authors, Robert Greene. Robert is the best-selling author of such books as 48 Laws of Power, Master, and The Art of Seduction. The Art of Seduction. These books have impacted me a great deal during my life. And as I'm writing my first book right now, my first book with a major publisher, and I'm going to be interviewing a lot more authors who have written books that have impacted me, and I think will help you guys as well. Now, before we get into Robert's success as a best-selling author, we want to talk about what it was like before, the fame and the fortune. And what a lot of people don't know is Robert struggled for most of his life. Up until he was almost 40, he was considered basically a failure, by his parents, his friends, and himself. So it's a good story for you guys to hear. Those of you who are struggling right now, those of you guys who haven't accomplished your dream, let you know it's never too late as long as you keep going. Check it out.
The 48 Laws of Power, that was a book that I read when I was in college, like 10 years ago. And initially I thought, man, this is evil. But then I read it again when I was older. I was like, no, this is brilliant. And I know you get a lot of that. What do you say to people who say that the 48 is not a good book, or it's evil, or it's, some people even say reprehensible?
Well, people who know me personally know that I'm not an evil person. Actually, a nice guy, probably like yourself. The book came from a kind of a place of a little bit of anger and frustration. I had many different jobs before I wrote that book. My girlfriend and I counted; it was well over 50, close to maybe even 80 different jobs.
Wow.
And prior to writing the 48 Laws, I worked in Hollywood. And I just got angry, a little bit irritated by, there's this discrepancy. There's the real world where people are manipulative, where people play power games, where they've got ego, where they experience envy, but they don't tell you about it. It's like this hidden world that we all know, that we've all experienced in the work world. We've experienced it in college as well, but nobody writes about it. It's like everything has to be, we can talk about sex, we can talk about money, etc., but nobody wants to talk about what really happens in the world of power. So what I wanted to do was just reveal it to you, be as straight as possible. This is what happens. This is what happens when the door closes and that executive is plotting what he needs to do. He's using one of the laws of power. And people like myself, who I used to be fairly naive, we're often the victims of these types of people. And so I wanted to lay it all out there. This is what the game of power is like.
Right.
And you, as an adult reader, can make of it what you want. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to talk about it as if we're all just angels out there trying to realize our better selves. No, there's a dark side to human nature, and there's a dark side to the game of power. And I'm going to show you, it's like a straight shot of whiskey. I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm not going to put water in it. And that was so it's not evil. But on the other hand, I'm not trying, it's not good. It's neither of those. It's just power.
That's what that's how I interpret it when I read it again when I was older in my early 20s. I see it like the laws are like it's neutral, not good or bad, like a knife, right? I can use a knife to cut food for a child, right? Or I can use a knife to stab people, right? It's just exactly what it is. You need to be aware though of what the knife is capable of. Use it how you may.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot. Every comment from you, man, means even more. One of my that was the one I was shot in Master. That was number one. That was law number one, Robert. You know, they're never shot in Master.
You don't have to use that with me. You're the master. You're the master of the show here.
Oh man. I don't. That's the 49th law right there. I don't know what it was, but that book it was published. Am I correct? When you were 40 years old?
It was published when I was 39.
39.
So close. Yeah.
Got it. And so what was it like? I know you worked a ton of jobs before then. What was it like to I don't know, was that like your first hit, or had you been like successful in other areas, or was that?
No, I've not been successful. In fact, my parents, as I often say in interviews, were starting to get a little worried about me. I'd have even say I could have even been seen as a bit of a failure.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, I tried many different jobs. I worked in journalism, and I had a little bit of success working in magazines, etc., but not really. Mm-hmm. And then I bummed around Europe for many years doing different jobs and having a pretty good time, but never quite figuring it out. And then I said I was in Hollywood, and that I was not really meant for Hollywood. So by the time I got asked to write the 48 Laws of Power in 1996, if you had to look at me from the outside, you'd say he never reached his potential. He was maybe on the verge of being a failure. I don't even talk about myself in the third person, but that's sort of like, if you were to my parents' point of view, what's this kid going to amount to? So I was very lucky. I mean, lucky but prepared, and it's kind of a lesson for people out there. I never gave up on myself. I never thought this is the end. I of course I was depressed sometimes, but I kept trying. I kept grinding, and then I met this man on one of my jobs he's a book packager, basically a producer of books. And he asked me for an idea of a book, and I kind of improvised what would turn into the 48 Laws of Power. And it was kind of like fate. I don't know if you believe in that thing, but it just was, something was right about it. We were meant to have that conversation that day. I was inspired, and I was so ready for a change in my life. I guess I was 36 at the time, so ready for a change and so hungry that when he responded to my idea, I kind of it was like get rich or die trying moment, or what I have a book, The 33 Strategies of War. Yeah. I call it the death ground. You're on death ground. Your back is to the wall. You're fighting an enemy, and you either win or you die because there's no place to retreat. For me, that's what it was. It was either make this book work, or I'm not going to find what I meant to do in life. This was my chance. So I gave it everything I had.
One of the things about Robert's books that really appealed to me is it's not like most self-help books. Most self-help books, they try to paint the world like it's all glossy. You just got to love the process. You got to love everything you do, and everything's all happy and roses. And if you get hurt, it's because your vibration wasn't right. But I think that's all bullshit. And Robert goes into a lot of detail about why he feels the same way as me and why his books are different.
I don't know. Sometimes I see your book in like the personal development section or the self-help section, and the reason you're one of my favorite authors is because sometimes a lot of these other books, they have a picture of a sunshine on it, and they try to paint the world like it's so beautiful, and they want you to believe in it. And then when I meet people who people who work in that space, or other authors from that space, they're all about hugging everyone, and that's what it's like. It's a little, I don't want to use the wrong word, but it's a little soft, and not to say that that's just not reality, man. Like, that's not reality. And I just what do you think of that kind of stuff? Do you think that your book is personal development, or how would you classify your?
Well, I never really thought of it as I never tried to classify it. It's not like other self-help books because they don't tell stories like I do, in the same way, and they don't have the kind of edge that I like to have my books have. And I don't. I'm a realist, in the 50th law. I called it. I'm sorry, 15. I called it radical realism, where there's actually kind of some sort of beauty and niceness about being so connected to what's really out there, as opposed to what you wish would be out there. So that's what I'm trying to aim at. in these books.
A lot of millennials I get, they were brought up in this kind of feel good self-help era, and a lot of them are my fans or listeners, and where everyone said, man, you're just cool, man, you should just love yourself because, like, and I guess that's cool, but that doesn't mean you good at anything. It doesn't mean you deserve anything, right? Like, but I think people have bought into that to the point where, yeah, just because I'm awesome or I think I'm awesome, I deserve this. I deserve responsibility. But
yeah. Well, you're not awesome.
Yeah.
I'm writing right now about a chapter on the importance of having a purpose in your life and a sense of direction, and what happens when you don't have one. So the icon of the chapter, the person I'm writing about, is Martin Luther King, who I've never really read about. Actually, I have to admit, I was pretty ignorant. And I read this 700-page biography, the best biography out there. And the thing is, he was constantly doubting himself. He was always like, I'm not good enough. I'm not the person people think I am. I'm human. I've sinned. I'm not up to this immense task that I've been called to do. And it was painful. He had a painful life. He suffered. The first 25 years of his life was great because he had great parents and he came from a pretty good neighborhood and he never really suffered. The last 14 years of his life were hell. Yeah. He just the death threats, the doubts. But so the idea is it's not going to be easy. Becoming what you want to become, finding the purpose of your life, doing things that you're good at and that you're meant to do, finding that calling and fulfilling it is not going to be easy. It's not going to be a bed of roses. It's going to require sacrifice and pain and suffering at some points. But then, ultimately, it's hard to say with his life because he was assassinated, and his life was cut short. But I have to feel like there was some degree of satisfaction and fulfillment that he had done what he had done, but the idea that life has to be pleasant and easy, if you're into sports and training, that pain is 80% of it. You're gonna, I swim a lot because that's the sport I've always been involved in stuff. When I get in the pool to start my 1.25 miles, like, shit, man, I don't want to do this. And that first few laps, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. And then you get past it and then you finish. And then when you're out, wow, I feel great. That's, in anything, you've got to be able to put up with some of the suffering and some of the pain to be actual master of your craft, whether you're a president or whatever it is.
What do you say to the people who say, man, you're supposed to just love the process, or you're just supposed to enjoy it? If you don't, you never have to work a day in your life. You enjoy what you do. What do you say to those people?
Well, that's sort of like what I was bringing up to the King story, because it's fresh in my mind. I'm writing about it right now. Is it's not about everything being pleasant and easy. If it were, we weren't meant. We all know that feeling that if things get too easy for us, let's say we have a moment in life where we've got a lot of money and the sun is shining and people do things for it, blah, blah, blah. What happens? We get arrogant. We get full of ourselves. We lose touch with reality. We think, man, I'm a god. Anything I do is going to be great. And then bam, we get hit with the truth. So, it's natural for us to kind of get elevated and think that, we are awesome without ever having done anything. And you need to have that ability to push yourself back and get your feet back on the ground. Yeah. And, I'm not saying my books are the ultimate model here, but to write a book is very difficult.
Yeah.
I would say 90% of it is kind of because you're alone. And you're, but then that 10% is so great that I would never, ever trade it for just a life of playing video games and having fun and hanging out with my friends. I would never trade it because, man, it's just so worth it. And that's, what I think when you find what it is that you were meant to do and you start that business and you have ups and downs, at least you feel like you're doing what you were supposed to do. And that's much more fulfilling than just kind of grabbing for immediate pleasures. But it's really hard for millennials. And I probably would be the same if I were a millennial, because they grew up in a world where everything was a lot easier. You know?
Yeah, they grew up in a lie, right? They were given trophies for losing, and then that's not how the world works, man. They're not gonna give you no trophies for losing, you know.
And even if you win a trophy for winning, it only lasts for like a week or two, and then you're back with somebody else trying to take your place. You know, life is hard. You know, it's hard.
And I'm just glad you said it, man. Because sometimes these guys, Robert, and it just bothers me to the point where I started thinking, am I crazy? I don't think that life is this utopia, or even supposed to be this utopia that you guys are talking about. I think it's difficult, and you need to plan accordingly. You know, and now they, you know.
Lots of celebrities, politicians, and famous people from all walks of life have credited the 48 Laws of Power for helping them with their success. Now, while most of this praise is viewed positively by Robert, there's one person, one guy in particular, Robert's not too happy with. Guess who it is?
If people like cite the book, you know, like Jay-Z, a lot of athletes, like, or your books in general, but particularly 48 Laws of Power. What is that? I know I heard Fidel Castro even. Like, did you ever hear any names like of someone like, oh man, I wish he didn't like my book so much, or does it ever get like that?
Well, I'm a little bit worried. Some people, I don't think Donald Trump ever reads a book, but some people have said that, you know, maybe he has read it because he's such a con artist, really. And 48 Laws of Power has a lot of stories about con artists in it. I hope.
So it's like a little guidebook for him, huh? You think?
I hope not.
You created a monster. So do we have you to blame for this, Robert? Is this what it is? Is this what it is?
No, I don't think so. I mean, some people say that, and I don't like to hear that.
No. I was just joking.
No, I understand. But you couldn't be more anti-Trump than I am. So I would be very upset if that were the case. I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, I'm honored and flattered. Jay-Z was one of the very, very first people who I saw quoted in a map. I think he was the first, really. It was a Playboy interview with him back in the early 2000s. And he quoted rather extensively the 48 Laws. I was very honored, and because I'm a big Jay-Z fan.
That's
so,
awesome.
you know, it's great. And then athletes, I know Carmelo, he tweets about it. And I've met quite a few athletes through their interest in the book. I'm someone who's very interested in sports, so I love, you know, talking to athletes and hearing about the mental part of the game and the struggles they have to go through.
You know what? Like you mentioned Jay-Z, I read the book based off hearing him say it too. That when I first got it in college, and because he was someone I looked up to and still do. You know, we come from similar backgrounds, but he was able to make it, and he was like, when he recommended, that's when I read it. So yeah, I got it from him.
I'll have to thank him.
Oh yeah, when you see Jay, next time you see Jay, just say,
I've never met him. Never met him. I can't say that I have. I've met his sister-in-law. That's as close as I've been.
Awesome. You brought up Trump a few times, and you know I'm not a big fan myself. You know, but it seems as if that sometimes people they get behind like these people who are. Okay, let me rephrase this. What I worry about from policy aside is that it's setting an example to kids or other people that, hey man, you should be it's okay to be mean, to call people names, or to be a bully, or to lash out at or act erratic,
or that grab women by their
the art of seduction.
Or that grab women by their, you know.
That wasn't an art of seduction. I didn't read that part.
No.
That's not how it works, Trump.
No.
But it's like, that's what I worry about. But because I also feel like that's an effective way to people are grabbed. Some people will see that as, man, that's confidence. That's man, he just does what he wants. And they gravitate towards that. And those people become leaders, you know, almost.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's what worries me about it. But
it's true. It's true.
is that a thing? Do you think though? Like, do you think that some people are putting on this act of this person? You know, like you said, this this bravado and being almost mean because there's power in that.
Well, there's a power of, in a kind of primal way.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. A few years ago, I was in Australia, Sydney, Australia, and I went to the zoo because I don't like zoos, but this was a very famous zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this enormous chimpanzee compound where there are
Mm-hmm.
chimpanzees, 50 of them, and they live kind of in the open. And I stood there for like 2 hours watching them. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. They had, they're so similar to us in a way, without all the sophistication, etc. They're so similar. And there was the alpha male, the Donald Trump of the chimpanzees in this front. And the behavior of all the other male chimps and the female chimps to this alpha male was so much like what I saw in Hollywood and executives and how other people. So there's something primal. I have a chapter on it in the book. There's something primal about the way we relate to authority that goes back to our primate origins. And people study it. So for instance, presidents tend to be taller than the average height of an American. They tend to be men. Obviously, Hillary didn't win.
Yeah.
They tend to have a certain level of confidence that's very appealing. They speak in a certain tone. They have an authoritative tone of voice. There are these qualities that just like go to the gut and say, okay, that's a person who I could trust to be our leader. But it's bad. It's bad that we have that. We have to overcome this seduction that people like that have on us. We need to find a new type of paradigm for leadership. We no longer should be drawn to these people like Donald Trump, because when you peel away the facade of the power and the confidence, he's actually riddled with insecurities. He's actually a very, very weak person. And people don't see that. And where is that weakness? If you can't delegate, if you can't admit that you're wrong, for instance, that's not strength, that's weakness. If you can't let other people, if you can't bring in experts to help you because you're so insecure and you have to be the alpha male, that's not strength, that's weakness. He's riddled with weakness once you pull the mask away. And so I think we have to get over that seduction that these powerful people have. And you look at someone like Obama. I liked Obama a lot. I thought he was a damn good president. Not perfect, but he was really good. He was strong. He was a authority, but he strong in a real way, not in that fake way.
Exactly. And he's still a gentleman, right? You know, like a gentleman. Someone who's I'm proud. Okay, this is my leader. Right? I'm proud to say that. But
oh God.
When I go overseas, especially when I went overseas, and I'm embarrassed, man.
My God, it's like
I'm embarrassed.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah,
I don't know. I haven't been abroad yet, and I'm dreading having to tell people about this stain on our country.
This is fascinating because I was so I live in New York, right? And and I'm black, so I'm in a bubble. I'm thinking, oh, of course nobody's gonna vote for her. Of course, no way. And then when he won, so I have a big fan base. I asked him. I know a lot of you guys are Trump voters. Can you guys just please, like, I'm not attacking you, please just tell me what makes you want to vote for him, just please. And a lot of them just maybe they just listen to Fox News all day or whatever. Right, okay, that's cool. But it's a lot of them. Some of them. This was like the resounding, overall consensus. They felt like the world had become too politically correct. They like the guy who just spoke his mind and said what he wanted, and almost like, and then he wasn't all perfect, and he wasn't almost like these guys wanted to vote for. They would have voted for Rambo, like they wanted Rambo to be president or the Terminator or something. But so it just goes to corroborate what you said. Yeah.
Well, I think of oddly enough, I think of my book Mastery. Because what I tried to say in Mastery is, being an expert, being really good at what you do, is like a great thing. It's what we were meant to do as humans. We're really practical animals that are great at making things with our hands or building things or solving problems. But that takes hours of work. It takes practice. It takes learning. It takes the proverbial 10,000 hours. Somehow in the world today, people have lost touch with that. They think with their smartphone, et cetera, that they can skip all this and they can become great in a year instead of in 10 years. But that translates to politics. So people have this insane idea that a complete outsider, someone who's never done anything with politics, who's never even really had to run a real business, because let's face it, Trump's business world is not reality. He inherited millions of dollars and he lives in this zone of like casinos and golf courses. That's not the real American economy. That's this kind of fake, Las Vegas where money isn't real, and you can go into debt and can go bankrupt and still come out ahead.
Yeah, you can't run a country like that. If you're gonna run a country like a business, we can't run it the way he's ran his business. I always, what I'm saying?
Well, hopefully not, because then he'll make America bankrupt, which is a possibility. But the idea that an outsider with no experience, politics is a craft. Politics is something you learn through years of experience. And people who thought that, like your friends, are under this delusion that we don't need experts, that we don't need people who've mastered their craft. I'm all for an outsider. I'm all for someone who's not in the corrupt Washington zone, but it still needs to be someone who's built up a level of experience in the area that they want to control. So if you asked me to suddenly be the pilot for a Delta plane, I would say, no, I don't think so, Brandon. I don't think I'd be good at that. I might
Even if you were alpha, you couldn't just do it because you're alpha.
Well, because I'm, wrote the 48 laws of power, so I can go pilot. No. Well, he's piloting our plane with about as much experience as I have piloting a plane, and I'm worried. But
this has been great. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Robert, man. We've been over an hour, but this is amazing. It's been just like an honor to talk to you.
Oh, no, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. So is there, I know you have a blog, but you haven't wrote on it since like 2014.
Okay, making me feel bad.
So if they want to get in contact with you, they can just wait to the 4 years for the next book to come out, I guess, or
Well, no. I've been working on it for 3 years. It'll be out next year.
I'm excited.
And I'll hopefully and I'll return to the world. I know, like in the 48 Laws of Power, I talk about the need to withdraw sometimes so people appreciate your presence.
Law 16.
Oh man, you're good. Use absence to create honor and respect. So I know I kind of, I do that a little bit, but I've done, you can go too far. I need to come back into the world. So I'm planning a lot of stuff. When the book's out, I'll do a lot of promoting, but I'm also going to do more things with a YouTube channel and stuff like that. But so just wait a year, and hopefully before then, we're gonna, like, through my Twitter account, we do a lot of quotes from my books and stuff. I'm gonna start bringing in the new book to sort of interest people. So as far as to answer your question, I have a website. I've had it for a long time. It's called Power, Seduction, and War. The and is AND. PowerSeductionAndWar.com. And there's a link to the mastery page and all that, and to the 50th law. And there's a place where you can email me, fan mail or requests or something like that. So that's the best place for now to reach me.
Awesome, man. Well, again, it's been a pleasure. Just stay on for a minute. I'm gonna end it, but stay on.
No problem.
God, thanks to God for listening, guys. Make sure you go out and get Robert's books. I like them all. Probably you got to start with 48 Laws of Power. But if you're one of my fans and you're some kid who can't sit down and read for a minute, start with 50th Law because it's the shortest.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, so that's my interview with the great Robert Greene. This is somebody who has impacted me my whole life, and it's truly an honor for me to speak to him. If you would like to know more information about him and his books, I'll put a link in the description where you can get more. And And if you would like to listen to this whole interview, it's a lot longer than on this video. If you want to hear the whole thing unedited, you can listen to it on my podcast, The Brandon Carter Experience, on iTunes or wherever you download your podcast from. You can listen to the whole thing. You know, if you like the videos like this, I'm gonna do a lot more with a lot more authors. Let me know, leave a comment, hit the like button, share this with your friends. I'm also working on my first book with a major publishing house. Right, it's gonna be major, it's gonna be big, it's gonna be bookstores. It ain't no self-publishing, it's a legit one. I'll tell you more about that as we get closer to that date. All right, thanks a lot. Peace.